Thanks guys for coming. So I was asked to do sort of, a presentation on something that I like to do, and something I've been recently bringing back from the archives is the No Hands Classroom. I did it in different ways over the years, but this year I really wanted to tackle it. We had who's the Kathy Murdoch come? Kath Murdoch. She just barely mentioned something about the No Hands Classroom, and didn't get into it. And it reminded me of when I had avoided this, but had different versions where I'd have the kids give me a thumbs up, or some sort of version of a hand, but less aggressive. But I started to do some research, and there's even a further step that you can take it, and that's actually not allowing any form of hand raising, thumb or hand or whatever, face. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to do it because in the classroom, when you have any sort of hand raising, there's invariably the students that always raise their hands, and there's the ones that never raise their hands, and so it really does not encourage active listening. So what does the No Hands Classroom look like? I basically have banned raising hands. The only time I allow raising hands is when a student wants to ask a question. So whenever I pose questions, or we're getting into some sort of topic, the students know, and we've kind of gone over. It takes a little front loading. So if you decide to do this, I'll get into the front loading in a minute. But the students know that they're not supposed to raise hands. And it's been a couple weeks, and I still have hands that are being raised. I started it after the new year, and yeah, no matter what. So sometimes I will just call on a student that I think is not paying attention. That's part of our rules, that I will actually push you to pay attention, and if I notice you're not paying attention, I will call on you to sort of bring you back. And it's not retribution. It's not supposed to be punitive. So we talked about all that before, and made sure that the students, we all have an agreement, and the students knew that this is a classroom of respect, and that we're here to learn, and that no one's trying to make anybody feel bad. And so if I call on you, it's just, hey, let's pay attention, and I might push it further and say, this is what we were talking about. What do you think? So they're required to pay attention. If they want to pass, they can pass, but sometimes if it's the same student that just is not paying attention, that might be a time when I engage them in a quick conversation about, well, what do you think? Let's share your thinking. We learned about this. Let's extend that and go to the next level. Also, at the end, there's always those students that are really disappointed that you went to a No Hands Classroom, because they've been raising their hands forever, and so they're all of a sudden not getting called on nearly as much. I do ask for any additional sort of information that somebody wants to share with us, so that everybody feels like they can answer. Yeah. So you could also, and I haven't needed this in this particular classroom. It's a class of 12, and it's a really great class if you're really lucky. But if you had a classroom that they were a little bit stressed out about being called on, you could have them sort of do almost like a hybrid thing, pair share, where they got to talk to a friend of theirs, a neighbor, and come up with an answer together. That way you're not, maybe for the younger kids, that way you're not putting them on the spot, really, calling them out. So I think that could help. But I haven't done that. So why, like I was saying, all too often the students that know that are paying attention, that are really engaged all the time, and maybe a little bit of a teacher's pet or whatever, might just always have their hands raised. And it kind of creates this culture where some of the other students that need a little bit more time, they're discouraged to raise their hands. And so sometimes when I was doing the hand raising, and now it's kind of the same, but I'm without the hand raising, I'll ask a question, and I'll actually right away set a time limit on it. I'm going to give you guys 20 seconds to think about this. That way everybody feels like they have plenty of time. There's no rush. It's not first one to think of it. Because there are some of my smartest students take an extra 10, 15 seconds for a typical question. Whereas I have some other students with photographic memories that are really fast, but they're not necessarily the like, taking it to these abstract levels and critical thinking. They're just really good at answering facts. So, the idea is that this approach encourages an atmosphere where students are expected to actively listen, and kind of what Kath Murdoch was also saying about that, which I think she said mindful, right? Is that the word that she used? That I really like, that, as like a human being, I'm always trying to be present and be there and really give every moment, everything that I can. So I think this is part of that, is really expecting all the students and creating this culture where the moment is really appreciated and really, there's no pressure. So they're able to come up with it. They're able to have it by themselves and not feel like they're being discredited or like somebody's jumping in line and getting in front of them. And then, the risk-taking creates a culture of respect, risk-taking and critical thinking. I really like the respect piece, and I'll get into like the agreements that we had for the No Hands classroom. We're always trying to make our classroom more respectful, and I feel like having that conversation with the students, that all our opinions and all our ideas are equal, that we're all coming from this place where we want to learn, and that we've had different experiences in our life, and so we need to respect what everybody has to say. It's a great opportunity to sort of get into that. And then we talk about the idea of making mistakes being a critical piece to learning. Really, it's the most important part of learning, is being able to make a mistake in an atmosphere that's not gonna penalize you for it. It's gonna encourage that. And it's been great. Today we went and because I was putting this together, and I realized that it was risk taking was a big part of it, and the opportunity to make a mistake. Because I tell the kids that it's really important to have those opportunities to make mistakes, not really big mistakes, but some smaller mistakes that you get to learn from. So we went online. So I created an activity today where I emailed them a couple websites where there are all these quotes about making mistakes. So they were pulling from famous artists, which was great for our art unit. They were pulling, Albert Einstein was like one of the first ones. So that was, any kid loves Albert Einstein. But really getting the kids to believe that making a mistake is okay, and that if I call on them and they don't know the answer, that it's okay to work their way through the answer, or try to figure out their thinking. And I kind of equate it to that, was it Brett Regis Feldman or whatever, the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, where he makes his guests, he makes his guests go through, because they can't have somebody waiting on an answer for 5 minutes. So he makes their guests, who are guests, go through their thinking and really like, well, I know that this president was, between 1858, and so I'm going to guess Lincoln or whatever. But it's a really good activity to be able to have the kids really think about their thinking and to try to explain themselves. So even if they don't know it, I find it to be helpful. So like I said, how do you do it? It's really important to have the sort of agreements front-loaded. Otherwise, you're kind of setting the class up for maybe a really stressful time. So we went over this. I rewrote it on the board for you guys. I'm going to, at some point, make a poster with it. Respecting each other. And these are all answers or ideas that the kids came up with. Respecting each other's ideas, even the wrong answers. Being polite, the golden rule, being patient with each other. Risk-taking, it's a big one, making mistakes. And I told the kids I was sure I didn't spell camaraderie right. So camaraderie, being excited for each other's successes and really helping each other. Active listening, asking for help, and not calling out. And it's really helped. Like before, even with the hand raising, I had students call out all the time and ruin an answer. Now it's amazing. Like I don't have any calling out. It's an unexpected bonus to this sort of style. So like I said, coming up with the agreements, fostering respect for each other's answers and opinions. So And then another thing to talk about, to talk to the kids about, is the idea of making mistakes. And you could pull out examples. Like I used to teach chess in my classroom, and so I have this whole backstory of different chess players who have talked about making mistakes. Because chess is one of those games where every move could be considered kind of a mistake because the opponent always has an answer for that. Even if you, whatever move you have, it could be considered a mistake. Whatever move you do. So most chess players would agree that making mistakes is really important in their game, and that's when they actually learn something, as opposed to when they just win all the time. Here's one of the quotes that the students had emailed me that they liked. Anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. And so really creating a culture in the classroom that quote sticks, where that quote sticks, I think is super important for any school, especially here in a PhD school. Okay, lastly, strategies and alternatives. I think a lot of you use this anyway. I mean, I'm sure you do. Whiteboards. I think the only difference is, once in a while, I would ask for hands, and now it's like I don't do that at all. I might have done it a couple times, but not really. The pair share, I know, everybody talks about the pair share, and asking any open-ended questions, and really focusing on, it's not necessary, almost like taking out
the bell?
Almost taking out the focus of a right answer, and it really not being important. What's more important is the thinking that got you there, because that is what's going to essentially create that critical thinking and creativity that all the executives way up higher are requesting that they're not finding they're getting in our education system right now. So some other ways that you might call on students and not have to necessarily point if you want to make it totally equitable. This was a gift, by the way. You could have sticks, like I brought these from. I used to do this in 2nd grade, and I found it just as awesome in 4th grade. So I don't really think it has an age limit. They used to call it a wishing cup. Now I call it kind of a question cup. But yeah. Also, I went online and found some different random name callers. So I filled this in a little bit, but a lot of you then shuffled in. So here are just a few names of people I saw when you were coming in, and it was really easy. I just took my class list, I pasted it in there, and then you can decide who you want to call on. So Claire, what are some of the strategies that you like to implement in your classroom?
Well, a lot like yours, I have a random picker. I call it the shaker of doom.
Oh, sweet.
The shaker of doom.
So, because I have all my students numbered 1 through 15,
yeah.
And it helps with organization. And I just shake it, and then they don't know who's going to get called. And so that's kind of the same idea, because there's always those students that kind of dominate,
yep.
And you give everyone a chance, that they know they might get called.
Yeah, and it's once the students buy into it, it's actually an awesome strategy. All right. What's cool about this is I can remove her name from the list if it's one of those you don't want to call on the same person twice, which sometimes happens. I get if I'm pulling my sticks, sometimes I'll just put the stick back in there. Other times, if I feel like it needs to be more equitable, I'll take the stick out. That way I can get through everybody.
Do you have a lie? You pull a stick and you call a different name that's on the stick?
I have
There's a way to hold the stick and no one can see what's on the stick.
I can remember that twice in my life. But now I have, and the kids would always think that was happening, because I would get pretty lucky sometimes. And so, but now with this super tall mug, you can't really, it's pretty hard to see. Alright, so I'm going to call on somebody else, and I'm going to remove Claire's name.
Thank you. That's a lot of pressure.
So I'm going to ask somebody else to share some strategies they use in their classroom that might be similar, or or ideas that you have moving forward. And always you can pass, but I might ask for some thinking or ask you for a guess.
I'll usually let kids discuss it first, and then randomly call or see who wants to volunteer. I've
Yeah.
never tried really the system of no hands.
Yeah, and I think Pair Share is awesome because, you know, when I call on just one student, it's only giving one student a chance to reply. When you have all these, and it's like basically robbing all the other students of any chance for conversation. And so, you know, when it first came up 5 years ago or whenever, when I started learning, it made so much sense to give everybody a chance to share, because not often do we have a chance to share it, so why limit it to just that one person? And I've taken that concept and extended it to any kind of paper that we're doing. Like, you know, we have this Norman Rockwell writing paper that we just, activity that we just did. And in the past, I would have maybe had each student come up here and read their story to the whole class. And while I love that, I don't, you know, it's time consuming, and we might not have enough time in this, ever to be able to do that. And so it's just as beneficial to be able to have that student read it to even 2 or 3 friends. And it's kind of like that concentric circles you could do, or you could just have them read it at their tables. And so I found that it's not like they need the whole audience. Even if they just read it to one person, it makes a big difference to them. All right, so I know we're almost done, and I can open it up to just kind of Q&A, and if you guys have. Oh, hi, Lenny.
I'm just trying it.
Nice. Yeah, it's super easy. And what I loved is, it gives you a URL so you can paste it. Like once you create your class list, you can save it as a URL. And I bookmarked mine, so I always have my class.
When I just went to the L10 this last weekend, we were shown 3 examples of things like this. Another one is really neat. It does this random generating of the letters, and it's really loud, and the kids love it, they said. And then another one that we were using, if your kids sign up for a Twitter account, there's Twijector. And Twijector, you show up here, and so the kids will be typing a hashtag, and so they could type in like 5CIICS, and then the Twijector is going to show all the Twitter tweets as it goes by, so you can have an ongoing conversation with everybody. Another thing that you might use is the Edmodo, which grade 6 is using, and I might start showing to other people, but you can have your conversations going in through the technology in like a Facebook type of account. And I can show all these things, but I'll send out links to everything that I just mentioned so that you can just check them out in your own time.
Yeah, and sometimes with this, I think in a perfect world I would make an awesome spinner. Maybe store and do that, because I would much rather have a cool like round spinner to spin as opposed to having to turn the smartboard on.
I think it needs to be like the from The Price is Right.
It's fun, and I feel like it's just as good a way to call on somebody. Yeah. But I'm not going to start the projector again, because that was about that. But does anybody have any questions or any thing they want to share as far as how it works in your classroom, or any tips?
How does it work with kids like Denny, kids who are really ADHD and just cannot and have that, they simply don't have that control, and they constantly have to blurt out? How does it fit in with kids who just don't have that, are unable, not that they can't learn, they're just simply, they can't control themselves?
You know, I don't think I have anybody on. Ask Aisha, but I don't think I have anybody quite that that challenged. But I do have some kids that are ADD or ADHD, and like I said before, with the calling out, I had a lot more calling out when the kids had their hands raised. There was like the hand being raised like added this pressure, and almost that pressure like made them blurt out. And now, it happens occasionally, but it's been really good. So I haven't experienced that issue. But I would argue that you might still have it, but it'll be less than when, things were high pressure, raising hand, trying to be really fast and first. Because I think it just removes that speed, that, pressure to answer quickly.
Yeah.
I wonder if the single subject teachers notice any difference in the way 4M responds.
Yeah, we have
like
to ask
if they're really used to that, and do they take that sort of that same weight mannerism to their single subject?
I think that the strategy has to be applied there. So if they're not expecting a randomization, then it's not carrying over, and they will carry the strategy that the teacher will use.
And they probably revert to the hand raising pretty quickly. You know, that pressure, like flirting.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I tried, so when we get to frat time.
Yeah, I'll not, I love it. Definitely. And there's a lot, like when I was doing research online, there's still like what people would call the No Hands Classroom is just like they're doing this now, so that kids don't feel the pressure, but it's still a hand raise. And I feel like going one step further makes all the difference. Because I still feel like, kids are like looking.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is the one that you probably see me do all the time. It's the kids that put their hands up first. I always get them, okay, great, can you choose somebody now? So they're part of the process, but they're choosing the next person instead of they're the first ones to answer. And it usually gives that other person a second or two to think, oh, okay.
And sometimes I'll have
Give the answer before.
No, I'm like, okay, can you choose somebody else? I cut them off before they want to give that
And
answer.
sometimes I'll pick a stick, and then that student, once they're done answering, will pick another stick. So it kind of brings them in. And if I had the Price is Right fortune wheel, I would have them.
Maybe all our classes should have them,
It's
Sean?
like a minute to spin notes. That would be like.
There is a DT department down there, actually. They can make that.
I don't think it would have made. I've been able to just say this is what we're doing. This is the new year. It's something I've been wanting
With
to
the level
implement.
of trust, maybe it takes a while to
Oh.
build it up too. I mean.
Yeah. Yep. Probably. That probably helps a lot.
Andrea.
But I think anytime you're going. I went over the essential agreements in the beginning of the year, and I think as soon as you have this conversation and you get the kids to buy into what you're doing, so you tell them, I'm doing this not to punish you or to put you on the spot and embarrass you. We're doing this so everybody pays attention. And then it's on you, really, to not punish them. And I mean, I have students that aren't paying attention, and it's like a gentle ribbing that I'm doing, like, hey, come on, pay attention. But I guess they trust me enough that they don't feel like. So maybe you could ramp it up a little bit as the year goes on. I think that's probably true. Because now I can call on anybody, even if they're not paying attention, and it's not me being, being mean. It's me, really appreciating them in my class and asking them to participate. So, yeah. No, I think that's a good point, for sure. And Andrea, did you have a question before?
I was going to say, it's something you can also use it as an assessment tool, because I don't see them very much. I have cards for the kids, so if there's something that I'm working on, then I just write on the back of the card, so I already have a record of like any kind of answers they give, or like something I just can't quite like go over to my computer and type, like it's nice to have their name there. Whatever I want to assess, I can just put like I check minus. And R if we're working on rhythm. Like it works as a single subject really well to have something you can write on as well with it. So if you're ever assessing like something specific.
Nice. Well, what do you guys think? If you're going to Twitter, please bring your computer.